I'm caught in a good fight, but
Welcome to Punto de Partida. Thank you so much for being part of the public radio here in Colombia. How are you?
Very well, thank you very much.
Well, first of all, let's talk about the meaning, the message of the upcoming album. It refers, as yourself have mentioned, and I quote, the ways in which real life disappoint us. There is a possibility that people might think that the concept of the whole album revolves around sadness or melancholy, but in the end, that will not be the case. It addresses those themes, but from various different perspectives. What are those general concepts that you decided you were going to manage in the new record?
I think that every time you make an album, you're in a slightly different headspace, and you have a slightly, I guess, like varying degrees of awareness of what you want to say and how you want to say it. And sometimes it's very like pre-planned and predisposed, and other times it just sort of comes to you. And I think those are feelings that have kind of been within me and within the Vaccines music since we started, really. And actually there wasn't really too much kind of preordained sort of thinking in that respect. I think everything just sort of came quite naturally, and the album almost kind of wrote itself. And then, like I say, like sometimes you'll know exactly what you want to say before you say it, and there are other times where you kind of say all this stuff and it comes really naturally, and you look back and you think like, oh, I guess that's what I was saying because that's how I was feeling. And I think musically and lyrically, this album sort of came very naturally without overthinking. So it was obviously a reflection of how I was feeling, I guess.
Now, I want to know, musically, where is the new album going ahead? What is going to be the turnaround factor from the previous albums?
It's definitely like it's hard to use this term without people rolling their eyes, but I think it is kind of an indie rock record in a more sort of like classic sense of the word. There's like, there aren't really many programmed drums. There's lots of sort of jangly electric guitars. It's a lot more kind of organic sounding. I think rawer, maybe sonically closer to albums like 1, 2, and 4, I would say. It's kind of, I think there's more like humanity in the production. I think as a music fan and as a music maker, I kind of go between the two in terms of what I find more compelling and more interesting. And I think this album, we all agreed it would be nice to have a more kind of human feel to the music, especially when there are 4 humans in the band 3 other humans in the band that are great players. And I think it's euphoric but melancholic as well, and it's quite frenetic and quite it's upbeat. I think it's probably the most upbeat album since the first album. There might even be more kind of upbeat songs on this than even the first album. I think the first 2 songs you've heard are a good indication of the record. It's definitely a sort of rock record or something,
Now, in this album, you worked with Andrew Wells, who was in charge of the production, and has worked with Halsey and Phoebe Bridgers, just to give some few examples. And I want to know, how much did Andrew influence in the sound of Pickup Full of Pink Carnations?
I think every time you invite an external collaborator into your world, you're wanting them to influence it in as many ways as possible. I think that's kind of why we don't produce our own records and why we choose to make a record with a different producer every time. I think you want as much of them as possible, and he's an amazing producer, an amazing engineer. He's a fan of the band as well, so I think he had an idea about what he wanted the band to sound like as a fan, and what he didn't like about us, and what he felt was lacking maybe in the last couple of records, which is just, it's always like interesting to hear from someone who's very capable and someone who likes what you do. And I think he provided a really, I would say, like inspiring and safe space for us to work, and had like a ton of great ideas, and is a great guitarist, and just, I don't know, I think he really provided the bedrock for the album as producers often do. And I wrote a couple of songs with him that he kind of helped me formulate and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, very integral.
Now, there is a possibility that many of our listeners here in Colombia will get to know the Vaccines with this new album that you are going to release. So I want to know, what song from this new album do you recommend listening first for those people who will get to know you with this new record?
That's very tough. You know, I've been seeing online a lot of people saying sometimes I swear kind of feels like old vaccines. And I like that because I think it does feel like old vaccines, but it also feels like new vaccines. And it's the first song on the album, you know, and it's the first song on the album for a reason. I think it's like a good introduction sonically and lyrically and emotionally and everything. So I would say that's a pretty good introduction, certainly for this phase of the vaccines.
Now, you plan to start the tour of the new album on January 11 in 2024 in the United Kingdom, specifically in Kingston upon Thames. So, what do you expect from this new tour? And I want to know, do you have anything special planned for this tour? What fans can expect from this new tour?
Well, you know, we didn't really get to tour back in Love City, the last album, properly because it was still the pandemic. So this is like the first time we're going to be able to like tour, really properly tour for like 4 or 5 years. So that's like very exciting. I think that the vaccines, we're like at our best when we're on a stage. I think we're only getting better as well. And we've got a slightly different lineup now. And I think everybody that's there really wants to be there and is really excited to be there and is feeling just energized and inspired. And I don't know, you know, we want to come and see as much of the world as possible and like put on a party, really. I don't know about special, but I think that I'd like to think every night's kind of special, really. I mean, in the UK and Europe, we have Teen Jesus and the Gene Teasers and Divorce, who are both great acts, and hopefully we'll be announcing more shows kind of further afield as well soon. So I don't know.